This is one of the most wild things I have spotted in a game. I literally cannot stop the pawn from getting to c8. I realized that my king can actually participate in the defense of my position, and actually my position isn't so bad now. I just finished up a 5 hour long game, and it was absolutely a nail biter. So I'm excited to share with you. This is round 3 of the Newcomb Memorial Tournament here in Dulles, Virginia. And yeah, I'm playing a person who's rated 1986. His published rating is 1892. So I did not know that his live rating was 19 over 1900 already. But it definitely seems like an up and coming junior player. And he played e4. I played the Caracan just like in round 1. Um, and just like in round 1, my opponent also plays the exchange variation. And he develops, I attack the pawn, he defends, I develop my other knight. And unlike my opponent from round 1, he played h3, allowing me to go a5, or e5, I mean, allows me to go e5. My opponent played bishop f4, so now e5 is much harder to do because it has 2 defenders on it. Yeah, so he played bishop f4, and I played bishop g4. And if you are a Caro player and you've played it a lot, then you know this is one of like the main variations of the exchange variation. And honestly, there's different people mix it up, but this is the most common way to play, and this is the way I play too. And honestly, I was kind of falling asleep at the board in this early middle game because it's so boring. Everyone knows these moves. I play these moves tons of times. So queen b3, getting out of the vision of the bishop, attacking the b7 pawn, queen d7, defending the b7 pawn, developing the knight. If you go knight f3 immediately, then I can double the pawns. But instead, you go knight d2. So then after e6, you can play knight f3. And now if bishop takes, the pawns are not doubled. You can take back with the knight. Now I play bishop d6, attacking the bishop. And if you take, and then they take the bishop, I take back the bishop. They could take on b7, but then I counterattack on the open b file, so it's not very good. So then they don't take the pawn on b7 because of the counterattack. So they just castle. I castle. They go rook a e1. There's 2 moves. There's rook f e1 and there's rook a e1. Both moves are good. And against that, now I'm going to like sometimes this bishop can be a bit misplaced after knight e5. So we usually trade it off and then go queen c7 to defend the b7 pawn and also to meet knight e5 with taking. And then they can take with the pawn sometimes and play f4, and the game goes on and on and on and on. Usually they don't play knight e5, but my opponent did. And yeah, the game continues from here. So yeah, hopefully that opening made sense to you. It was pretty all fairly normal, natural moves there. And he actually took with the rook, not with the pawn. And I was honestly considering knight g4 because if the rook goes back, then there's just checkmate. Just checkmate on the board. And so the only way for the rook to defend would be rook h5. And then he's starting the f7 pawn. I could go g6, and then he could go rook h4. And I couldn't decide whether or not this was good for me. So I spent like a bit of time here on deciding whether or not to go knight g4 because of the fact that after knight g4 and all of this stuff, my knight's under attack. And do I really want to play f5? And I wasn't sure. I was actually analyzing this game with 2100-ish level player, and he was actually kind of interested in the move f5. One cool note is that you can never kick the knight out with h3 because that would blunder checkmate in 1. So the pawn has to stay on h2 because it's guarded by the rook. And if you kick the knight with f3, well now this e3 square is weak, and this rook has very little squares. Like for example, we can even play queen e7 an in-between move to attack the rook, and after rook h3, for example, like this rook is weird, and the h7 pawn is always well guarded by the queen or maybe a rook that goes to 7th rank. After rook h4, I was planning to go knight f6. I wasn't sure about f5, but maybe this is an idea to really consider here. Maybe it's not that bad. Maybe it's not that good, but it doesn't look that bad at all. But if I did stick with my original idea of going like knight f6, if I did play knight g4 earlier, well, then it gets a little bit scary because like queen c2, and they're gonna go queen d2, queen h6, and g4, g5. And I was like, how do I stop all this? Like, how do I stop all this? Like, if I want to expand on the queen side and play like a6 and b5, or like rook b8, then like by the time I get any counterplay going, it's too late. Like it's too late. The queen and rook are getting in on the h pawn, and if I take, for example, g5, although maybe I have knight h5. I actually didn't see knight h5 to be honest, but this still doesn't feel that good. Maybe black is surviving, but man, this does not look good at all. Um, like maybe I even have to like play f5 here, but you still lose a pawn at the very least. Maybe you take with the queen. I'm not sure. But yeah, I didn't believe it. At least from a distance, because I have to calculate that from this position. From this position, I'm calculating knight g4 and all that stuff. So I didn't believe in it. Although maybe it's actually not that bad, and maybe I should have played that. Instead, though, I played g6. So now, if he does something, a lazy move like a4, for example, knight g4 is straight up winning because there's no way for him to defend this h2 pawn, because if he goes rook h5, then we just take, and I'm still threatening checkmate. Um, and so yeah, after g6, he plays f4. So now after knight g4, he can play rook e2 or rook e1. And there's no more mate because this pawn on f4 blocks it. And after f4, I play rook b8. And I'm just going to expand on the queen side. Minority attack, minority attack. And we're not talking about uh we're not talking about any we're just talking about pawns here. When we say minority attack. And and we're talking about pawns here. So and he has 4 pawns on the queen side. I have 2, and I'm going to try to use my pawns to create weaknesses and open things up on the queen side. And so it's a typical plan in these types of positions. After a4, I play a6. So he tries to stop my plan of expanding with b5, and I play a6 to keep it going, to help support the b5 pawn push, to continue my minority attack. And he plays rook e3. Rook e3 doesn't really do anything. Like, already here, I felt pretty good because he wasn't, attacking my face. Oh, that was really loud right in front of the mic. But he wasn't really doing anything. Like, he doesn't do anything. And after I played b5, and he took, and I took, and then he played queen b4. And that move is designed to stop me from pushing my pawn even further. Like, for example, let's say he continues to do nothing and plays like rook h3, for example. I can play b5. And this square has 2 defenders. It has the queen as the defender and the pawn. But if you take it, then like queen b6, and this d5, this d4 pawn is hanging, and this b4 pawn is hanging. And black is doing very well here. There is like nothing bad with black's position here. So he plays queen b4, so now I cannot push the pawn to b4, but the queen is not really great on that square. Like, the queen should never be a blockading piece. And because his queen is all the way on b4, I should play the move knight e8 to get the knight to d6, and then it controls the c4 square really well, the b5 square, the f5 square, the d4 square. Like, a lot of times in a lot of different positions, honestly, where you have a pawn on d5, a knight on d6 is beautiful there. It controls the squares really, really, really well. And I was actually very proud of this knight of 6 to e8 to d6 maneuver. It's one of those types of maneuvers where you feel like, like, yes, I'm fancy, type of deal. The only thing I was concerned about after knight e8 that I had to calculate was f5. And this is the type of thing where, like, white is trying to like go for your throat here. But I didn't really believe in f5 because like, yeah, it hangs a pawn, but it does open up lines for white's pieces. That's the idea. Because any sacrifice, like for example, bishop takes, any sacrifices, the queen on b4 doesn't help. If the queen was on c2 already, this is a little bit more scary because it can get in. But here, since the queen's on b4, it takes a couple turns to start attacking the black king. And so I think black is probably fine here. Black is probably still winning because of a piece, although it is definitely pretty scary. Um, but yeah, so it's definitely something I considered. But the thing is, after f5, I might not even take with the e pawn. I might even take with the g pawn, or I might take once, but not the second time. Like I don't have to take twice. So those are some things to consider. But I do play knight e8, and he just plays g3. And the guy I was analyzing was with like, why not g4? And I was like, I know, right? Like g4 may look weird to some people because okay, you're throwing pawns in front of the king, but that's what the position demands. I think that's a good way that Victor put it. Victor was the guy I was analyzing with. That's what the position demands. Like in a position like this, the position really wants you to play f5 and attack the king because you have these rooks on the king side. You have this bishop point towards the king. It's only the queen where it should really be on b3 or maybe c2 or d1, and you could even rotate it around to the king side like this. Like it's the queen that's the only like really misplaced. Outside of this queen though, the position demands g4, f4, f5. Breaking open the position and really gunning for it. Going all in. My opponent is kind of like g3 is very meek move. He's trying to stay solid, which I guess is why he played the exchange Caro-Kann to begin with. This is have a very solid position. But I have all the time in the world though to have a perfect setup. I have a very perfect knight d6, beautiful, absolutely stunning, a beautiful main, a beautiful like this is a knight glistening in the wind. This is a great knight. And he goes to the open file. I can test the open file. So both of our rooks are on the A file here. He defends his rook with another rook. And because if he just traded rooks, for example, then I have the open A file. And this is a really big advantage. So so we leave this tension here. Both rooks are staring at each other. It's a stare down. Whoever blinks first wins. And spoiler alert, I blink first in a stunningly bad turn of events. I played knight c4, and I really liked this position. Like he can never take because I can take and go rook b8 with tempo, and his queen doesn't have that many squares, and I'm going to win. I'm going to win the b2 pawn. And life is pretty good. Like, where do you even move the queen? If you go queen a4 is guarded by the knight, or queen a5 I mean is guarded by the knight. Queen c5. Now we're trading queens, and I'm going into this endgame. Oh yeah, this is the position where I couldn't believe this was actually winning for white. This is one of the craziest. So after knight c4 and rook eb1, I wanted to play rook a7 to try to double up my rooks, but I decided it was actually losing because after queen takes, I want to play rook b8, but then he can play queen c5, and then I can take, and if I take this pawn, white checks me, king up, and I cannot stop this pawn from promoting. I cannot stop the c pawn from promoting. This is one of the most wild things I have spotted in a game, and I'm very happy I spotted it because this is nuts. Like, I literally cannot stop the pawn from getting to c8. Like, if I go knight d6 to try to guard the square, c7, and I'm going to have to give up my knight for a pawn, and I will go on to lose this game. So I was like, okay, I can't rush. I have to play king g2. Oh, king g7. I have to play king g7 and not rush. And now, like, let's say now let's say we go for the same thing. Now, this actually happened in the game. He played king f2. I played rook a7. Let's say he takes the pawn now. and we get the same exact thing as before, queen c5, and I take, take. Well, firstly, this is a check, but imagine it wasn't a check. Now, rook, let's say I waste a move too. Now, rook a8 doesn't come with a tempo, and now I can play a move like I don't even know what to play. For example, rook b7, and now if c6, I can block the pawn. This is just an example of something I could do. So I thought king g7 was a really big brain move. Like, wow, I'm so smart. King g7 is so smart. And now since my king's on g7, now I can go rook a7. Except I completely overlooked the move b3. Like, I thought about b3 in other positions. Like, for example, when I immediately went knight c4, I thought, okay, b3 isn't very good because I'm just going to bring my knight back to d6. And it still defends the b5 pawn really well. And now the c3 pawn, it can be a target. I can play rook, put one of my rooks on the c file, and I'm gonna contest both the half open c file and the open a file, and I have a lot of play. Like I'm not concerned about the move b3. I'm just not concerned about it. It's not a worrisome move. But the issue is that after rook a7, here, now he plays b3, and well, what's the difference? Why am I geeking out about it? Well, because knight d6 doesn't work anymore. I can't bring my knight back to d6 because a rook takes, queen takes, and queen takes d6, and I'm just down a piece. So my queen's overloaded. It's when I eat too many tacos on a Friday. I'm overloaded, and um, and I cannot defend both the queen, the rook, and the knight at the same time. So because I cannot defend both the knight and the rook at the same time, now I have to blink first and give the open a file. And as you'll see, I'm suffering. I am absolutely suffering in this game for the rest of the game, basically. So b3. I could try a move like knight d2, but I don't think it amounts to anything. For example, I could probably trade rooks and play rook b2. And if the knight goes to e4, I could probably take and then take. And this looks pretty good for white. Maybe I have some counterplay with like a queen a1, attacking the rook, getting in on white's first rank. But maybe queen e2 is fine. And then these passed pawns are going to get rolling. Like, look at these two beautiful passed pawns that can just hold hands right down the board. Maybe queen e2, queen c2, and we're going to push them. And there's nothing I can really do. So I thought about a move like knight d2, but my knight is kind of stuck there if I do put it there. And I'll have to trade it off, and that doesn't look very good. So that's why I just traded rooks and played knight d6, and then he played rook a6. So he has this open a file, and he utilizes it. And he's attacking my knight. The knight has two attackers on it, so I have to defend it. There's no real good place for the knight to go. If I make a move like knight f5, he can probably just take and then take on g5. Although that does allow me to take on c3, so probably he would wait a bit and maybe even play rook a5 first and then take. Although he has to make sure not to rush. And he also doesn't have to take my knight. He might just take my pawn too, like this. This might also work. So yeah, there's a lot of different things he could do. But I just decided to defend my knight. So I play rook d8 because I think my knight's really good on this d6 square. He plays queen c5, and I spent at least 10 minutes trying to evaluate the endgame. Probably at this point, after queen c5, oh my gosh, yeah, he has 10 minutes. I have 13 minutes. So probably in the last 10 moves, we were spending a lot of time. Like back on move 15, we both had, close to our starting times. But yeah, we were, at this point, a lot of time has already passed. But he plays queen c5. And I was trying to evaluate the endgame after I made a move like this. Like knight e4 is a check. It attacks his king and his queen, so he has to take. Then I take his queen. He takes back his queen. I take his bishop. And I was trying to evaluate this. If he goes king up, then rook check, king takes, rook here, c6, rook takes, c7, rook c3, rook a7. And I was like, this is going to be at least a draw. Maybe I'm slightly better, but I'm not worried. I'm not going to lose this position. This is totally fine. I also calculated, okay, well, what if he plays a move like, and I also calculated like what if I play rook c8? Well, oh, actually, well, it's his move actually. Wait, he has this move too, rook d6. I didn't see this move actually. That looks like a pretty strong move. But then I have, oh yeah, that's a really strong move actually. Because I was thinking like I can never go rook c8. Like okay, let's say he goes rook d6. I never have rook c8 because of b4, and his pawns are very strong. And this b5 pawn is very very weak. Like if I ever go rook b8, he can go rook b6. And if I don't go rook b8 and go to king f8, for example, he goes rook b6 anyways, and he's gonna win this pawn. So, and also, my conclusion was that he's just straight up winning if he goes rook b6. Because if I try to win his pawns, he wins mine. And he has these two connected passers that are going to hold hands down to victory. And there's nothing I can do. Like, for example, king f8. If I try to bring my king in to help stop the pawns, he can worm his way down, inch his way one by one. So, rook b6, king here, let's say king here, for example, c6, king here, b5. If I go here, he has check. And actually, he can't push. But he can just take all my pawns. But he can just take all my pawns. And if I try to attack his pawns, he can probably take more of my pawns. And this is probably not what I want. Although it is closer to a draw since we're trading so many pawns. But anyways, I thought this endgame was very much losing. I mean, I calculated this far. Wait, no. I calculated this far. And I thought there's like, and I was even, I did a bit further too. And I thought this was definitely losing. But maybe he can't rush. He probably has to bring his king in first. Maybe he has to bring his king in first, or I'm not sure what he has to do, but I'm pretty confident this is still winning for white. So after queen c5, I really was really scared, and that's when I really realized that like my position is really awful because I cannot trade into an endgame, at least not yet. I play queen d7, guarding the pawn and getting out of the queen's sight, so no queen trade. He plays rook c6, and at this point we both have no time. At this point, he has 7 minutes. I have 11 minutes after I played the move h5. He plays rook c7. I play queen e8. He plays queen c6, and I play queen f8. So my queen is stuck all the way on the edge of the board. And yeah, he could take this b5 pawn. He really could. And I would probably take, I guess I don't have to. I might do this check. And let's say he goes king f3, for example. I have queen a3, and I'm gonna try to get in. But if he tries to take my also king f3, there's also this check to win a pawn immediately. I don't even know where you go. Like if you go here, for example, you lose your extra pawn. So he has to be very careful not to rush. And to his credit, he does not rush. He doesn't. Like he really doesn't. Like he's very patient. He plays king f3. I play king f6. I really don't have any moves. I can't move my rook, or else my knight will, or else I guess my knight isn't hanging yet. I guess I could play a move like this. But rook d7, and my knight is forced to move. Well, maybe I have rook here. Yeah, I do. I can still put my rook back. Yeah, so maybe rook a1, rook a8 is fine. But like my queen cannot move. Like it literally can't go anywhere. If I go like move like queen e8, then like takes, and takes, and this is bad. This is bad news, bears. This is not good. So so I just played king f6, slightly improving the position of my king a little bit, and then I'm also just waiting to see what he does. And at this point, it's move 34. We get an additional 30 minutes after move 40. And at this point, we both have very, very low time. So he has 3 minutes. I have 7 minutes. I play queen e8. Um, he plays rook c6. I play queen e7. So we're just dancing. We're dancing, we're dancing, we're dancing. He doesn't want to commit to taking the pawn until after move 40 when he has more time. And we're both shuffling here. H3 is an interesting idea. Like, let's say I continue shuffling with the king. He plays g4. I take. I go here. Now he can take this pawn. Because after I take his bishop, he has to move g5. And my king is forced away from the defense of my queen. And he wins a queen. So h3 is a really sneaky idea. It's a very, very sneaky idea. So after h3, I go rook d7, just defend my queen. So now if g4 and takes, and let's say I shuffle, for example, he cannot take because I mean he's down a bishop in this case. He did not win a queen. So after rook d7, he plays queen g4 or queen b4, and like I said, like we're shuffling. He is waiting for his right moment. I play queen d8. He plays rook a6. We both have under a minute on the clock. There's 30-second increment per move, but we both have under a minute on the clock, and we're shuffling. I play queen b8 this time, guarding my pawn like this, guarding my knight like this, and he plays queen c5. I play king e7, and I realized that my king can actually participate in the defense of my position, and actually my position isn't so bad now. I actually thought, like, and this is move 41, so he reached the second time control of 30 additional minutes. So now I was like, okay, like I finally got a configuration: queen on b8, king on e7. I figured something out. And if you go rook b6, for example, well, now I can actually go queen c7. And if you do trade, oh man, I'm a happy camper. Dude. Wow. I'm super happy here. Like, actually, I'm probably straight up winning in this position. So he has to be very careful to not do a queen trade. So he plays king f2. I play queen c7. And like I said, he's waiting. I play queen a7. And I thought for sure he kind of has to trade queens. And this endgame, I'm not worse. Like, even like rook b6, for example, I could probably just play rook a3, and I'm not worse. I'm never losing this. I'm totally fine in this position. But he doesn't take, probably because he knew the endgame was worse for him. He plays queen b4, and I was analyzing this position with Victor, and I cannot tell you for the life of me why I did not go. Actually, no, I know why. But there's a few moves to do. I touched my queen, and I was ready to play queen b7. Like, I hovered it over the square, and then right before I let go, I was like, oh wait, this is more complicated than I thought. So firstly, queen b7, I can also go queen a2, check. This is also an idea. But I kind of leave this pawn stranded. Like, my queen cannot go back to defend this pawn. But it's not checkmate. So let's say in this position I play the move h4, for example. Let's say, and if he takes my pawn, well, I take his pawn, and there's no threats on me, at least not yet. There's no threats on me yet. So so now I actually have time. Like, if he does take back the pawn, then I might even have some sort of perpetual, or my queen gets in, and maybe I'm okay. Or maybe I even play queen h2, and if he takes the pawn, I have queen takes. And like, white has to be very careful, because like if they do a lazy move like rook g6, for example, then black might even just be winning here. So I didn't see that during the game. I did not see that during the game, of how good this infiltration could possibly be. I just thought I was getting my queen away from the defense of my queen side. And like, if I lose this pawn, like after queen a2 check, and after I lose this pawn, like this is a pass pawn. It's gonna get rolling down the board, and he can bring his bishop back. Maybe he can bring his queen back to help defend too. And oh, actually, this case is that's very very bad. That's just checkmate. But you get the point. So I didn't believe in the attack of queen a2 check, but honestly, it was probably the best move. Instead, I spent a while. You know, I spent a while here because I also realized that after queen b7 or queen b8, he can take this pawn. And I thought he couldn't. Well, firstly, I thought, oh my gosh, wait, he wins a piece here because after takes, 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 take, this is a check, takes and takes, I'm down a pawn. Well, I thought it was down a piece for a second. When I was first calculating, I hallucinated and I thought it was down a piece. But no, I'm just down a pawn in an endgame, but I'm actually going to be winning this pawn. And let me just go over that again. So he takes the pawn. I take his bishop. My queen is guarded by my knight. But he can remove the defender of my queen by taking my knight with his rook. And if I take his queen with my queen, then instead, if he takes back my queen immediately, I'm up a rook. But he has this in-between move. He can take rook takes d7, and I'm forced to respond to that. Then he takes my queen, and now it's equal material, but he's up a pawn. But my king moves first. And in this position, I couldn't believe my eyes that, you know, we're in the second time control. We got an additional 30 minutes. I thought down to 3 seconds here. Because I couldn't believe that after all of the trades, I'm down a pawn, but I get my king to b4, and I got to this position in my head, and I'm like, oh my god, I'm losing. Because I'm going to run out of pawn moves. Like, let's say he just waits. I'm going to run out of pawn moves. Let's say like this, for example. Going to run out of pawn moves, and I'm going to get zugzwanged. I'm gonna be forced to move my king back, and then he's gonna get his pawn. He's gonna get his king forward, and he's going to win the game. And I calculated his king going all the way to b5 and b6, and I was like, oh my gosh, like from this position, I was like, it's from this position. I was like, oh my gosh, I can't take the bishop. I was like, I can't take the bishop. Like, I can't do it. There's nothing I can do here. And the time's ticking. You know, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2. You know, the time's ticking. And I end up playing h4. It was a panic move. It's probably not that bad, but it is a panic move. And one mistake leads to another. So, but if you go back to that endgame for a second, you know, queen takes, all these moves. We go back to this endgame. It's equal pawns. And I learned this is not losing. This is a draw. And I hallucinated in my visualization because the king cannot move forward. The white king cannot move forward. For example, king c3, we're going to sit and wait. And white has to push eventually to make progress. And we can still sit and wait. Oh, wait. Why is this not working? Wait, king... Okay, king a5. Yeah, your king has to be at the right square at the right time. So I was calculating king b5 this the entire time. So I was calculating king b5, and after king c3, king a5, and check. Oh wait, no, I still have king a4. I kept missing this move, king a4. Like, white cannot push the b4 in this position because of king a4, and white's losing the pawn, and white actually might even just go on to lose the game. Like, legitimately, like, white is playing to lose. That's actually the phrase that Victor used. I did not see that. Like, I got to this position in my head, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm losing. Like, I just lost. And maybe here, I think you have to go king a5 to meet king a3 with here. So uh, every time the king is forward, you want to be able to go here. So if b4, now you can go here. Although this looks losing. Although I guess it's not. Oh, in this case, it is losing actually. But you probably didn't need to do that either. You probably after b5, you probably could have gone king here and done it like this. Oh wait, no, you can't do it like that either. Oh, you kind of have to guard this. Okay, maybe it's like this. No, no, no. Wait, is this still losing? Wait, how is this a draw? I want to turn on the engine a little bit for this part of it. Oh wait, no way. According to the engine, at this point, it's a win for white. This endgame is equal. No, it's a win for white. According to a low depth engine, this is winning for white. For some reason, I thought it was a draw. So my calculation was right. I actually thought I was wrong, because in post game analysis we were looking at the game, and I realized, can I even go king a5 here? King a5 is the best move here. King here, king b4, king c4. And white is getting some sort of triangulation or something. Waiting for the right move? What? This doesn't make any sense. So this endgame is supposed to be losing for black? That's wild. I did not calculate this deep. But I was talking to someone and they were talking to Victor, and we were concluding that like this wasn't a loss. But maybe there's some shenanigans that white can do to pull off a win at the right moment. I'm gonna have to study this later. Yeah, no, this is too complex. This is too complex. But anyways, I got to this position in my head, and I thought this was absolutely losing. In which apparently it might actually be. The engine is like inconclusive almost. It's weird. But in time pressure, I panic. I absolutely panic, and I play h4. I play h4, and I hallucinated because the idea of h4 is to loosen up this f4 square. So if this knight were to move, then I could take on f4 with check. But the knight is pinned to the queen, so I move my king, and I completely hallucinated. Here, the whole reason why I played this was because after knight e4 and bishop takes, I thought queen f4 was making the king move, and I could take the bishop with check too. And I was like, oh yeah, I'm doing really great here. But the issue is, after knight e4, he takes, and I cannot take on f4 because the bishop blocks. And I was like, oh my gosh, I hallucinated. I absolutely just hallucinated, like, in this position. And I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe it. Well, honestly, wait, this position doesn't even look that good for white, though, because of rook a7. Wait, this might be winning for black. I'm actually speechless. Wait, this actually might be winning. Like, despite being down a piece. And yeah, black is winning. There's no way to defend. There's no way to defend the rook from infiltrating and white getting checkmated. White has to give up their queen here. I can't believe it. Oh my god. I can't believe that. I missed that move. If I saw it on the board, if I saw it on the board, I might have been able to play it. I probably would have found it if this was on the board. But in my head, I hallucinated. And because I hallucinated this, that the bishop can block, I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm so stupid. I just traded queens. And I had no time. I was like, I had, literally a second on the clock. And there were multiple moves where I just had 1 or 2 seconds on the clock and I made it. But now I'm just lost. I'm down 3 pawns. I mean, yeah, these are ugly pawns. I mean, it's kind of funny how ugly all these pawns are, but he's up 3 pawns. Like 3 pawns is 3 pawns, and he just goes here. And I'm gonna fast forward through this part because I mean he's just winning. He's winning, and there's absolutely nothing I can do, and I resign here. I I can't believe it. Queen f4 check wins me the game. Yeah, and I completely missed it. I completely missed it. I completely missed it. In time pressure, and if I would have won this game, I would have been 3 out of 3, and probably playing a Wonder Liang in the next round because he's playing this tournament too. But now I lost, and I fought really hard, and I had my chances, and I missed it. I missed it. I missed my chances. I missed all my chances in this game. That's tough. That's tough. Well, I think I'm gonna leave it there. I will see you guys in the next one. Game review time.